I'm Chris Hallman from Mozilla, and I'm here with Brock from harpio. Can you quickly introduce yourself? What are you doing for them, and what it actually is?
Yeah, so my name's Brock Whitten, and recently started a company called Chloe Inc. with Rob Ellis, who's someone who I've worked with in the past at both Nitobi and Joyent. And our latest project is called Harp, and it's a platform that we're working on to solve problems in the front, in managing and rapidly developing the front end of web applications.
So,
So,
originally, the problem was that you always needed to have your server and explain people how FTP works or SCP or getting data out there. And then like cloud platforms came around and said like, well, you don't need to build your website. You can actually just put it on the Windows Azure whatever, like, or Mac platform, and then out of a sudden, for example, Mac said like, oh, there is no personal home pages anymore and all your stuff is gone. So would harpio make it as easy for end users to start building their first web products, or what is the market that you go for?
yeah, absolutely. So the market is where, well, we have to wait and see who that platform is going to resonate most with. But it's certainly going to appeal to beginners a lot because we're removing like all the ceremony out of the initial. Like I see there's complexity in two areas. One is application development, and then the other one is dealing with your development environment. And they're both equally complex, but they're actually completely separate things. And what we want to do is take care of the environment for people so that it's not too intimidating to get started. With that said, I have had frustrations personally with my own experiences in dealing with deploying simple applications. And it's not necessarily simple ones, but I've found that like our environments are often more complex than they ought to be. And even when we manage simple things, we tend to have fairly complex development environments, and that includes like the kind of the latest fad with preprocessors and like doing CoffeeScript and things like less and Compass and Haml and all that stuff. And it's like the end results like the it is quite simple, but we're constantly adding complexity to the system to try to like ease some of our pain, but we're adding other pain in our environment in order to give us like development bliss, you could say.
Yeah,
So
I
so
talked.
we
Yeah, I talked about this before. We're going into abstraction modes rather than like making sure that the standards that we're using are actually understood or actually will be used properly. So everybody's building their own preprocessor to save on 10 lines of CSS when you write them, but when it renders out, it becomes 300 lines of CSS that nobody understands anymore. So it's a weird
Yeah,
situation.
that's right. Yeah, and even like for the wins that there are, there's trade-offs, right? So like I mean we've been using less and Jade quite a bit with a lot of our stuff. And it's really nice. It's nice to use, but like from step one, I mean like it takes a night to figure out, okay, what's the best way we're gonna like compile this? And am I gonna recompile it every time I want to refresh the browser? Or am I going to, or am I going to use the client side compiler and then when I go into production, create the CSS file? Like these decisions like require expertise and knowledge that a lot of people don't have, but yet the tools are designed to appeal to a higher level group, like a group that wants the barrier of entry to be easy and more manageable.
Yeah, and I think the main difference into the past was that we can do everything now with client-side technologies. We just need HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, whereas in the past we needed a PHP compiler, which was an Apache server that needed setting up, or an ASP.NET server with a personal web server and these kind of things. Nowadays, it's much easier to have those, and a system like Dropbox, for example, allows us to store all of them and be our server and just get synced to the cloud where it will be then on a real machine.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And like we found that even like especially with the trend where mobile has gone, with tools like PhoneGap where the applications are entirely static assets and they talk to an API backend. That turns out to be a good paradigm in a lot of situations. Just to a have our components modular and discrete, so you have your back end and your front end separate. And so we've seen that there's a lot of companies tackling the back end aspect of things, and you see these mobile back end as a service, things like Parse and Convey come to mind, but we don't really see people addressing the front end, and so that's what we're going to tackle for you. So we think that there's a lot of work to be done there, and like the thing is that it's all little wins and they really add up. And so we've kind of been surprised at just how most platforms don't really seem to be interested in solving all the little problems, like all the little paper cuts that you get when trying to maintain an application in production. And so that's what we're working on.
Cool. So what are you looking for? Like, how can developers help you? And even more interesting, how can I get my hands on trying out your systems right now?
Yeah, so right now we're gearing up for a public beta. We're kind of skipping the private beta aspect. We've got a working prototype right now that's probably, I would say, about like 70% production ready. That we just need to replace some components where we made some shortcuts to get some feedback from people. And but what's going to be most important is that we find out as quickly as possible like what people want to use this platform for. And so we have our own assumptions and our own like use cases that we want to make sure that Harp platform works for our needs, but it might not be exactly what resonates most with people. And so I guess we're just going to need people to use it for as real as possible applications as soon as possible. And if they can't do that, then we want to know why. And so we definitely like we're driven by solving real problems, not necessarily like delivering a solution that we're convinced is beneficial, if that makes sense. So first and foremost, make sure that you're signed up at harp.io to get access, and that list will be the first to know when the public beta is available.
Hmm. I like that approach because even if it doesn't turn out anything, if you don't become the next big thing that gets lots of funding and stuff, there's still a lot of tools that come out of it, a little things that can make another build process out there easier in the future. Because as far as I understand, you release everything open source then later on, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I think like the approach will be probably similar to like what GitHub looks like. We're just like the glue that like manages the money and ties everything together is closed, but all the components that it's put together with are open. And so a lot of the tools actually that for Harp are already open source. They're just not advertised as such. You just have to pick around my GitHub repo a little bit, and it'll probably become obvious. But certainly, like I think when it comes to myself evaluating what I want, where I want to host my projects is I want something that is um, reliable. I know it's going to be there. I know that the people taking care of it are competent and understand the problems, and that I'm not locked in. So that if I, at any point, whether it's a financial reason, like beneficial for me to move to my own servers or whatever, it should be easy for me to do that and to run my application anywhere that I choose. So that's certainly like an important goal in what we're achieving is we don't want vendor lock-in. We want people to be able to see how the system works and how they can run it themselves.
Sounds good. So looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.